Emily Turner thought the quiet parking lot was safe, until Darren Cole stepped out of the shadows, turning an ordinary night into a living nightmare that would grip an entire town in fear. Emily Turner's Thursday had been like any other. Long meetings, coffee gone cold on her desk, and a sense of relief when the clock finally struck 8. She left her office building with her usual calm stride, clutching her purse and car keys. The air outside was crisp, and the parking lot of Maplewood Plaza was mostly empty, dotted with just a few scattered cars glinting under weak yellow lights. She had parked near the far end, away from the main entrance, something she often did to avoid the crowded exits during rush hours. That small habit, so ordinary and harmless, would soon change everything. As she walked toward her silver sedan, the sound of her heels echoed faintly across the lot. The night was still except for a distant hum of traffic on the highway. Somewhere behind her, an engine started. Emily turned slightly, noticing a dark SUV idling a few rows away. It wasn't unusual for cars to come and go, but this one seemed to linger, its headlights off. She brushed away the unease that began to creep up her spine, reminding herself not to overthink. The glow of her phone screen lit her face as she unlocked the car with a soft beep. Then she heard the sound, quick footsteps, sharp against the pavement, growing louder. Before she could turn, something heavy struck her from behind. The impact forced the air from her lungs, and the world spun into panic. She struggled, dropping her phone, the bright screen illuminating the ground for only a moment before it went dark. Her keys clattered beside it. A rough hand covered her mouth, muffling her scream, while another gripped her arm with brutal force. Emily kicked and twisted, but the grip only tightened. The man's breath was heavy, his movements fast and practiced. In seconds, she was dragged toward the SUV, her shoes scraping against the ground. The vehicle door flung open, and she was shoved inside. The sound of the door slamming shut echoed through the lot, followed by the screech of tires. Then silence returned. Emily's phone lay on the cold concrete, its cracked screen glowing faintly beside her fallen bag. An hour later, when a security guard made his routine patrol, he noticed the phone first. Then he saw the keys, the purse, and the faint marks of struggle near the car. He called the police immediately, unsure of what had happened but certain something was wrong. By the time officers arrived, the parking lot had turned into a scene of flashing lights and quiet dread. Investigators taped off the area, combing through every inch for clues. They found shoe prints, tire marks, and faint smears on the car door that looked like fingerprints. When Emily's co-workers were contacted, panic spread through the office. No one had heard from her since she left. Her family was alerted, and within hours, her face was on every local news station. Police released a short statement, calling it a suspected abduction. They had surveillance footage, grainy but clear enough to show a figure forcing her into a dark SUV. That image, frozen in time, became the beginning of a nightmare that would grip the entire town. Detectives began their investigation before dawn, piecing together Emily Turner's final known movements. The grainy parking lot footage was their first solid lead. It showed a man wearing a dark hoodie, tall, broad-shouldered, and purposeful in his actions. His face was mostly hidden, but the vehicle stood out. A black SUV with a damaged rear bumper and a missing hubcap on the left wheel. Officers circulated the image across the state database, searching for a match. Within hours, a hit came back. The SUV was registered to Darren Cole, a 42-year-old man living just 10 miles from the abduction site. His name was not unfamiliar to law enforcement. Darren was a registered sex offender with a violent history, previously convicted for assault and unlawful restraint. He had served 8 years in prison and been released less than a year earlier under strict parole supervision. When detectives arrived at his small rented house on the outskirts of town, the front door was unlocked. Inside, the air smelled stale and the blinds were drawn tight. It looked like someone had left in a hurry. The kitchen table was cluttered with half-eaten food, unopened mail, and an empty beer bottle lying on its side. In the bedroom, clothes were scattered across the floor, drawers half open. The only thing missing was Darren himself. Investigators found his parole documents and an electronic ankle monitor tucked inside a drawer. He had cut it off, leaving behind a small smear of blood where the metal edge had sliced his skin. Neighbors told police they hadn't seen him for several days. One mentioned a black SUV leaving the property late the previous night, headlights off, heading toward the highway. The parole officer confirmed that Darren had missed 2 mandatory check-ins that week. A missing report had been filed, but without a confirmed crime, it hadn't been treated as urgent. Now, with Emily Turner missing, everything fit together like a puzzle no one wanted to solve. Authorities quickly issued a statewide alert, describing Darren as dangerous and possibly armed. His past offenses revealed a disturbing pattern. He often targeted women in isolated locations, using surprise and speed to overpower them. The discovery reignited public outrage about his release, with news outlets running his mugshot across every broadcast. The police set up roadblocks and began searching abandoned buildings, truck stops, and motels. Helicopters swept across rural areas, while K-9 units combed through nearby woods. Late that evening, investigators found something significant. A traffic camera had captured Darren's SUV traveling south on Highway 71 just an hour after Emily's disappearance. The timestamp confirmed he was on the move. The vehicle appeared weighed down, as though someone was inside. That image deepened the urgency. Every hour that passed meant Emily's chances of survival grew smaller. Detectives expanded their search radius, coordinating with state troopers and neighboring jurisdictions. As night fell again, the investigation had transformed into a full-scale manhunt. The streets of Maple Ridge grew quieter, but tension hung heavy in the air. Police scanners buzzed with chatter, updates coming in minute by minute. Somewhere out there, a dangerous man was on the run, with a young woman whose life depended on how fast they could find him. 2 days after Emily Turner vanished, the search took a critical turn when a local farmer discovered an abandoned vehicle along a narrow dirt road 20 miles from Maple Ridge. It was Emily's silver sedan, doors unlocked and engine cold. Investigators arrived within minutes, marking the area and collecting every piece of evidence. Inside the car, they found her purse on the passenger seat, her laptop case open but empty, and a half-drunk bottle of water in the cup holder. The driver's door bore smudged fingerprints later confirmed to belong to Darren Cole. It was the brake detectives needed, but it also raised grim possibilities. The vehicle was clean, too clean, suggesting someone had taken deliberate time to remove traces of a struggle. The area surrounding the car was vast, lined with tall grass and thick trees. Tire tracks led away from the road, vanishing into the woods. Search teams followed the tracks until the terrain grew too uneven for vehicles. K-9 units were brought in, and the dogs caught a faint scent leading toward an overgrown trail. For hours, officers combed through the area, calling out Emily's name, but the forest remained eerily silent. A few miles away, a shallow stream cut through the woods, its flow washing away much of the trace evidence. The dogs lost the scent there, and investigators were forced to regroup. The next morning, a lead came from a nearby property owner who had reported strange noises late at night, muffled cries, and the sound of an engine stopping and starting again. When officers reached the site, they found an abandoned barn hidden behind a cluster of old pine trees. The structure was falling apart, roof half collapsed, and doors hanging by rusted hinges. Inside, the air was thick with dust and decay, but what they found chilled everyone on scene. A length of rope lay coiled near a wooden beam, beside it a torn piece of fabric. Forensic testing would later confirm that the fabric matched the blouse Emily had been wearing. There were also deep scuff marks in the dirt, as if someone had struggled to move or escape. A nearby patch of earth appeared freshly disturbed. Officers dug carefully, fearing what they might uncover, but instead of a body, they found discarded trash, a piece of duct tape, and cigarette butts with DNA traces belonging to Darren Cole. It was clear he had been there, but the absence of a grave meant Emily might still be alive. The discovery reignited the urgency of the case. Investigators widened the perimeter, setting up roadblocks and checking abandoned cabins, sheds, and fields within a 50-mile radius. Helicopters swept the sky while officers trudged through mud and brush below. The sense of dread grew heavier with every hour that passed. The barn had given them hope and horror in equal measure. Somewhere out there, a predator was still moving, and Emily Turner's fate hung in a fragile balance between life and death. The search for Emily Turner entered its fourth day when investigators uncovered a new lead that changed everything. A surveillance camera from a gas station 2 towns away captured clear footage of Darren Cole. He appeared calm, wearing a baseball cap and a clean jacket, standing at the counter as he paid for snacks and a bottle of water. What shocked detectives was that he wasn't driving his black SUV anymore. Instead, he was seen in a white pickup truck reported stolen the previous night from a rest stop. The timestamp placed him at the station less than 12 hours after Emily E.'s car had been found. That small window meant she might still be alive, being kept somewhere nearby. The discovery breathed new life into the investigation, and every officer involved knew that time was running out. Using traffic cameras and toll booth data, detectives traced the stolen truck's path heading toward the state border. It had been spotted along an old interstate route that cut through dense forest and farmland. Police units were dispatched immediately, and an alert went out to every county along the route. While teams spread out, the FBI joined the operation, offering technical support and surveillance drones to cover more ground. The search expanded rapidly, and the atmosphere grew tense. Every possible sighting brought a rush of hope, followed by frustration when it led nowhere. By evening, a truck driver called in a tip. He had seen a man matching Darren's description parked near an isolated rest stop, loading something into the back of his truck before driving off toward a wooded area. Within an hour, a state trooper spotted the same vehicle abandoned near an overgrown trail that led into the forest. Officers moved in carefully, flashlights cutting through the dark as helicopters circled overhead. The woods were silent except for the crunch of leaves underfoot and the distant hum of engines. Then they found it, a small cabin, nearly hidden among the trees. The windows were covered, and the door was secured with a rusted padlock. When police forced their way inside, they were met with the stench of damp air and something far worse, signs of someone being held there. A mattress lay on the floor beside ropes, food wrappers, and a water bottle. In the corner, a blanket moved slightly. Underneath it, they found Emily Turner. She was weak, pale, and terrified, her wrists bruised from restraints. She could barely speak, but her eyes opened the moment officers called her name. One of them carried her outside as paramedics rushed in. Meanwhile, a search perimeter was established. Darren was nowhere in sight, but moments later, a movement in the trees caught an officer's attention. He had been hiding beneath a fallen log, trying to blend with the shadows. When ordered to surrender, he bolted. The chase was short. He stumbled into a ditch where officers tackled and handcuffed him. The manhunt that had stretched for days ended in that dark forest. Emily was alive, and Darren Cole was finally in custody. Emily Turner was taken to the nearest hospital under tight security, her condition fragile but stable. Doctors treated her for dehydration, minor injuries, and exhaustion. The days she spent captive had left her both physically drained and emotionally scarred. She spoke little at first, needing time to recover. But when she finally began recounting what had happened, every detail helped investigators build the full picture of her ordeal. She explained that Darren had attacked her the moment she reached her car, forcing her into his SUV before binding her wrists and covering her eyes. He drove for hours, making several stops to avoid detection. At one point, he switched vehicles, abandoning her car and later stealing a truck to continue his escape. Emily remembered being kept in the small cabin where she was eventually found. He had given her just enough food and water to keep her alive, but never spoke much, pacing restlessly as if always expecting someone to find him. Meanwhile, detectives compiled the evidence gathered throughout the investigation: the rope from the barn, fingerprints from Emily's car, DNA on the cigarette butts, and fibers from the cabin all tied directly to Darren Cole. Every piece of evidence painted the same picture of a calculated predator who had carefully planned his moves to avoid capture. Prosecutors built an airtight case, ensuring that this time he would not find another chance to walk free. His arrest brought relief to the entire community, which had lived in fear since Emily's disappearance. News outlets followed every update, and the story spread across the country, sparking debates about parole supervision and how someone with such a history had managed to vanish unnoticed for days. In the courtroom months later, Darren appeared expressionless as prosecutors detailed the events leading up to his capture. The jury listened to Emily's testimony through recorded statements, where she described the